Okay, let's dive right in. At the absolute heart of Christianity, there's this profound puzzle. How can one person, Jesus Christ, be both fully, completely human and, at the same time, fully and completely God? Well, the answer has a name. It's called the hypostatic union. And really, it's the best explanation that makes sense of everything the Bible itself tells us. The reason we even need this explanation comes straight out of the Bible. On the one hand, you've got passages like John 11:35. Jesus wept. I mean, he got tired, he got hungry, he felt deep, real sorrow. That's as human as it gets, right? But then you flip over to John chapter 1, and it says, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God." So how do you possibly hold those two truths together in one person? You can't just pick one and ignore the other. And that's the massive paradox the early church had to wrestle with.
And believe me, this was not just some philosophical game for scholars in a library. Getting this wrong, it had huge real-world consequences for how people prayed, how they worshiped, how they even understood their relationship with God. The early church had to face down a bunch of flawed answers that, in an attempt to make things simpler, ended up threatening the very heart of the faith. So one of the first major attempts to solve this was something called Nestorianism. And what it tried to do was protect both natures by separating them too much. It talked about a conjunction, which basically made it sound like Jesus was two separate people, a divine person and a human person, just acting in a really close partnership. It kind of fractured him into two individuals, which, if you read the Gospels, just doesn't fit the picture at all. Then, of course, the pendulum swung all the way to the other extreme with something called monophysitism. This view basically collapsed the two natures into one. The popular analogy was that his humanity was absorbed by his divinity, kind of like a single drop of honey dissolving into the vastness of the ocean. And the big problem with that? Well, if his humanity is gone, then Jesus isn't really human anymore. And if he's not truly human, he can't genuinely represent us. So you've got these completely opposite ideas, creating a real crisis. The church absolutely had to step in and create a formal definition, one that could hold that biblical paradox together without falling off the cliff on either side. And this need for clarity led to a truly landmark moment in church history. And let me tell you, this wasn't a quick weekend debate. It unfolded over decades of really intense discussion. It all kicked off when Nestorius started preaching his ideas around 428. Things got so heated that the Council of Ephesus condemned his views in 431. But the controversy didn't just go away. It kept simmering for another 20 years, finally culminating in 451 at the Council of Chalcedon, and that's where they hammered out the definitive statement. And the council's conclusion, captured right here in this quote, "This is the heart of everything." Just listen to the careful balance. "We confess one and the same Son." Okay, that's the unity, one person. But in two natures, that's the distinction. He's both human and divine. And those four phrases that come next, think of them like guardrails on a mountain road, designed to keep this incredible truth from veering off into error. All right, so we have this really elegant phrase, one person, two natures. But what does that actually mean, like in practice? Let's unpack the official, orthodox understanding that came out of that council at Chalcedon. First things first, and this is super important. To really get this, we have to be clear on what the hypostatic union is not. It's not saying that Jesus is two separate beings, a human person and a divine person kind of duct-taped together. And it's also not the human Jesus plus Jehovah, like they were two different individuals who decided to team up. Now, the correct teaching is this. Jesus is one single person. He is the eternal Son of God. And this one person has two complete, distinct natures, a full divine nature and a full human nature. Both exist together perfectly and completely in that one single person. Now, here's where the language gets really precise, and it's a crucial distinction. The Son of God didn't just come down and unite with a man who was already there. Now, the eternal Son became man. He took on humanity itself. It's exactly what John 1:14 says. The Word became flesh. It's an act of becoming, not just joining. And to protect this mystery from being simplified away, the council set up those four guardrails we mentioned. The natures exist without confusion. They don't blend together to make some new third thing. They exist without change. Divinity stays divinity, humanity stays humanity.
without division, that's the protection against splitting him into two people, and finally, without separation, meaning these two natures are forever united in the one person of Jesus Christ.
Now, I know what you might be thinking. Wow, this is a lot of abstract theology. But for those early church leaders, this wasn't about winning a debate. This was about protecting the very heart of the gospel. I mean, the reality of salvation itself, the very identity of the one they worshipped, it all hinged on getting this right. And this is where it stops being abstract and gets incredibly practical.
Think about it this way. Because Jesus is fully human, he can actually be our representative. He can stand in our place, he can experience what we experience, and he can be that compassionate high priest the Bible talks about. But because he is also fully God, his sacrifice has the infinite power and value to actually pay for the sins of the world. You see, you absolutely need both natures united in that one person.
So when you boil it all down, the hypostatic union isn't just some dusty old definition. It's the very framework that makes the story of rescue possible. It's the how. It explains how God himself could become one of us in order to save us. Without this understanding, you're left with a savior who is either not human enough to stand in for us or not divine enough to actually save us.
And that really leaves us with a powerful final thought. This whole thing was never just an intellectual exercise. For the early church, defining who Jesus is was protecting the gospel. And it forces us to ask ourselves the same question today. If the identity of Jesus is the absolute foundation of our faith, then how does getting that identity right shape everything, and I mean everything, that we build on top of it?